Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to week 4 of Camp Remax 2016. Want to welcome all of the amazing real estate professionals that are joining us from all over the world this morning. It's amazing that we are already halfway through camp, 4 weeks out of 8 weeks done. It's amazing how fast the summer goes. Welcome this morning. I'm Valerie Garcia, and I want to thank you so much for joining us here at Camp Remax. This is our 4th year, and for many of you, you've been loyal campers and attendees and advocates for camp for all 4 years. So we are just really thrilled to see you here every Thursday morning in the summer. We are welcoming campers from over 40 different countries this year. That's amazing, and it's so awesome to see so many of you learning. As you know, the purpose of this summer series is to help you prepare your business for the fall market while having a little summer camp fun at the same time. And as you're aware, the theme of this year is the county fair. And so um, one of our favorite topics at the county fair or the state fair, any fair that you go to, is really it's really the food. And so today we are going to be talking a little bit about the food and what that means to your business. So be sure to follow us along on Twitter and Instagram using the hashtag Camp Remax, or on Instagram at Camp Remax, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Camp Remax, so you can chat with all of your fellow campers and share your thoughts with us. Give us a shout. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We always like hearing from you. So we're already halfway through our summer series. We've learned some tips and tech tricks. We've shared some marketing ideas. And last week we got real on the topic of working with difficult people. But we still have lots of good stuff in store. So we are going to jump right in today. And today we are talking about real estate farming. Now, I grew up on a farm. It was a lot of hard work, and you learned very quickly that the more you gave, the more you got. And that is just like real estate. In the farming community, if you don't work, you don't eat. And that is just like real estate as well. So the thing about farming, though, is it's really about the process. It's the process of planting, caring for your plants, and then harvesting. And that is why we are going to be talking about farming today. And how it applies to your business is really that it's a process. It's not an instantaneous plant a seed and you immediately get to harvest the next day. There's a process in between. And so I'm going to share some of that with you today. Hopefully you're going to come out of this session today with some winning strategies. These are the things that we're going to be covering. First of all, what is geofarming? What is real estate farming? And why should you be implementing these strategies into your business? Where do you get started? What are some of the rules? Are there rules? Love to hear your feedback on Twitter and Facebook on some of these points today, whether that you agree with these or not. And then ultimately knowing the basics, the ways that you go ahead and get started and implement some things that are tried and true into your real estate business. So these are the things that we're going to be covering today. All right, so to get started, the common question in this class is, what is geographical farming? What is real estate farming? And ultimately, what does that mean? And how do I implement that into my business? Well, real estate farming, or also known as geographical farming, is really when you choose one particular area of your city and focus your marketing in that area. So you really make that one particular area your main focus, and the majority of your business ultimately will come from that area. And the reason why it's called farming is because it is essentially just like farming. You farm that area by planting seeds, you grow your business, just like you're growing vegetables, and hopefully long term you're reaping the rewards of of those efforts by harvesting new deals and repeat and referral business. So choosing a good farming area is really important. And in a minute, we're going to cover all of the ground rules for choosing that right area. But before we do that, I think it's really important that you understand a really critical point, and that is this. Real estate farming is long-term relationship building. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you that farming is simply just door knocking and dropping flyers. But farming and door knocking or dropping flyers are not the same. Door knocking and dropping flyers is an element of farming, but they're not the same thing. When you're door knocking and flyer drops are some of the activities that you should be doing in that farm area, of course, but farming overall is a very long-term process. So unlike your other lead generation methods, there are not usually some immediate leads out of this. It's very long-term. You have to remember that by farming, you're investing in the future. So just as you cannot eat what you planted yesterday, you can't expect to immediately make money on your farm area. It is going to take time. But the longer that you stick with it, the more successful you will be. So that's a very important point to point out in the beginning as we get started in this, is that these are not immediately tangible results, but that doesn't mean that they're not working. So where do I go ahead and get started? What are the questions to ask myself right up front? How do I choose a farm area? And what is the criteria that I use to go ahead and figure out if this is the right area for me? So I'm going to give you these 7 questions today to ask about the area that you're potentially contemplating, or maybe about the area that you're already farming. And so you can really decide if this is the right area for you. So let's get started. First of all, how many homes are there? Really good question to ask. What's the right size for a productive farm area? This is probably the most common question you get when you talk about farming areas, is how big of an area do I need? What's the right size? There's not really one right answer to this question. It's really going to depend on a number of factors. But on average, you should be really farming an area that's going to provide you with enough business to see a return on your investment. But you need to remember, not all of your business is going to come from your farm, especially not right away. So you really need to keep that in mind when determining your area. You need to figure out if that's a big enough farm area to sustain you. The average farm area out there is anywhere between 600 to 2,000 homes. A couple of ways that you can find that information. You can use the Postal Service, or you can use the census information to determine the number of houses in that area. Again, you can door knock. But one of the things that's really important to remember is that you can grow your farm area. You don't need to start it out huge. And that's going to become an important point as we talk a little bit later about investing your time and your money, is that you don't want to bite off more than you can chew right at the beginning. So the next question you need to ask yourself is, what is your budget? What are you able to spend? And is this number sustainable for more than a year? This is a really important question to ask when you're starting a farm area, because a successful farmer is honestly going to be writing checks all the time before they ever see a harvest or a return on that investment. So really determining your budget up front is crucial, so you can actively and accurately start planning your marketing efforts. Now, it is really important, we are going to talk a lot about this, that you do have to invest in this. You have to make sure that you have the right tools, and you have to make sure that you have the seeds and you have the resources to maintain this for a period of time before you start seeing results. And so you do need to make sure that you have put a budget aside for effective farming. So what's your turnover rate? This is the next question you need to be asking yourself, is you need to know your stats. Do you know what the average days on market are in that area? Do you know how long on average the homeowners are staying in the area? Do you understand how quickly houses sell? And do you understand all of those stats before you go into the area and really start farming it? Now, if you're working in an area where the turnover rate is very low and people tend to stay in those homes for generations, or homes stay on the market for a very long period of time, that's going to tell you either need to increase your farming area, or maybe you need to focus on a different farm area. Again, knowing how long homeowners are staying, that's an important stat that is going to help you know what your cycle needs to be in terms of when you change your marketing over from homeowner tips to seller tips. So knowing the turnover rate in your farm area is really important. So those stats you really need to start with and understand that information before you choose a farm area or know that information about your farming area. The next question you want to ask yourself as you're choosing a farming area is, what are the sales trends? Are prices going up in the area? Are homes on average being renovated or well maintained? What makes up the demographics of that area? Are they mostly move-up buyers or first-timers or downsizers? Are you understanding really how quickly things are selling and why they aren't? Do you understand what renovations are being done to make those homes sell? Do you have a pretty good understanding of what's really contributing to the trends in that area? These are questions, again, they're going to be, there's no particular right answer, and everyone who has a different farm area is going to have different answers to these questions, but these are the questions you need to be able to answer in order to successfully farm that area. The next question you should be asking yourself is, do other agents farm this area? Do you know what their market share is? Now, huge hint for you here. A lot of people really feel like they can't farm an area if there's somebody else already farming in that area. They find that, they feel like somebody maybe owns that area, and they wouldn't risk trying to break into that farm area if someone else is already there. But really, one thing you need to remember is there's definitely room for more than one farmer if you're willing to do something different, if you're willing to provide a service, um, or an experience or information in a better or different way than the other person is. Now, if you're going to go into that farm area and try and employ exactly the same tactics and try and use exactly the same methods, you're probably not going to be successful because you won't stand out. But if you look at the farm area that you're targeting and their market share is not a significant portion that says there aren't enough houses to go around, and usually that's the case. Usually you're going to see that they don't have market share that's so significant that you couldn't successfully go in there and also farm the area. But you do need to be willing to try something different and stand out. So the next question you need to ask yourself when you're choosing a farm area is, do I like this community? This is really important, guys, because you really do have to be present in that community on a regular basis. You kind of have to be somebody who's an advocate for that community. You have to be someone in that neighborhood who really knows it and loves the people and the homes and enjoys really rolling up your sleeves and getting into it. So if you don't like that community, chances are you're not going to be super motivated to do those things. So as you're choosing a farming area, make sure that it's an area that you can really talk to your customers about, like, hey, this is a fantastic place to live, and here's why. I love the neighborhood that I live in. I could talk to you all day about what I love about it, the farmers markets and the walking trails and the community feel and the kids who play hockey in the street in the evenings. And those are the things that I really focus on when I talk about my neighborhood. So you need to find those things that you love about that community and start to incorporate those into your marketing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but that's really important that you like that community. If you don't like it, I'm not saying you won't be successful, but I also don't think your heart will be in it. The last question you need to ask yourself is, are there local businesses? Now, this is a question that sometimes people overlook. They kind of go into it like only thinking about themselves in terms of what they want to get out of it. Are there houses? Are there enough houses? Are there people that want to sell? And, can I get some of that business? But you also need to think about partnership opportunities. Overall, this is a long-term process. This is a relationship building process. So as you're going into a community and you're focusing on things like, what kinds of community activities are there and kinds of things can I get involved in and really leverage? Are there partnership opportunities for those with other businesses? Are there other entrepreneurs in the area that would love to partner with you? Are there mom and pop shops? Are there small businesses that would love the opportunity to pair up and work on marketing and events together? So those are some questions to also be asking yourself about your farm area. So at this point now, you've chosen an area. You kind of know what you need to ask yourself. You have some hard-hitting answers in terms of your stats and your area, and you're ready to start really digging in and farming an area. Well, are there rules? There are definitely some keys to success here to make your farming area successful. And the first one is this: consistency and repetition. This is probably the most important rule of all. It's the key to whether your plants grow and you get to harvest those tomatoes or whether they die. You have to be consistent and you have to continue to do the same things over and over again. Statistically, they say that an adult needs to hear something 7 times before they remember it. That seems like a lot, but the reality is you have to be consistently in front of your audience with the same message so that they will start to remember you off the top of their head. So this is rule number 1. You have to plan for consistency and repetition. Rule number 2 is having a specific target area. Really important that you do choose a specific area and that you start with a specific number of houses in a specific area. If you don't do that, sometimes you tend to not be as effective. You don't know how to plan. You're not going to be as effective with your budget because you don't know how many people you're dealing with, and you're not going to be as effective with your time in terms of door knocking or being face to face with these people. So really targeting a very specific area to begin with. Rule number 3 is having specific goals. You can tell that I really like this word, but how often are you communicating with these people? How often are you sending information? Having specific goals are definitely met more often than goals where you just say, every once in a while, I'm going to try and reach out to these people. It needs, as we said, needs to be consistent and persistent. So having those regular goals where you're meeting them is going to help you really be more successful. And then number four, you really need to know everything there is about your farming area. You have to become the expert on the style of homes, on the prices, on the value, on the owners, the prospective buyers, the community amenities, the schools, really everything. In order to really own the area, I like to say that you need to become the mayor. You need to really know everything there is. This picture reminds me so much of my grandfather. He was a farmer for 65 years, and his favorite thing was to go out and just sit there and talk to his corn. That sounds so crazy, but my grandfather could tell you everything about corn and every season and how it grows and what the leaves look like when it's stressed or needs more water. And that seems like a crazy thing, but my grandfather really knew his farm area. He knew his crops, he knew his audience, and he knew everything about them. And that really helped him to be the very best farmer that he could. And that is something that you need to focus on as well, is that you need to know your farming area and everything about it. And the last rule, the fifth rule here, very important, you got to give it time. You have to be patient. This is not an overnight thing. It takes time and persistence to truly own a neighborhood. So don't expect this all to happen overnight. All right, so now you have an area and you know it's going to take some time, some effort, and some patience. But what else do you need to know? I'm going to give you some basics here. We're going to go through these really quickly, but these are some of the things you really need to focus on if you're going to successfully farm an area. And the first one is you got to start with a plan. You got to have that target area. You need to know your budget, have a plan for how many touch points. You need to have an understanding of the average commission and price range in that area and the number of appointments that it's going to take you to get per sale. All of those things are going to become really important if you are going to have a very specific income goal from your farming area. So you need to understand how much on average you're going to make from a sale, how many appointments or calls it's going to take you to get to that sale, and how many touch points it's going to take you to get to those appointments. So you got to work your way backwards, but those numbers are really, really important. I know plan sometimes makes us feel a bit freaked out because that's some work, but if you do that work up front and you know what your specific targets are, you are much more likely to actually reach them. Very important that you also remember to not bite off more than you can chew. Start small. Don't start with 6,000 homes. Make sure that you can grow your budget as your systems allow, and be systematic about it. Understand that you can have a growth plan for your farming area, that you don't need to start out huge. You can start out small, establish your systems, your touch points, what works, what doesn't, and then continue to grow it from there. Sometimes people feel that, well, I need to make this much money, so I really need to. Keep in mind that, again, hopefully as you grow your farm area, repeat and referral business is going to come out of it. So you need to allow for that kind of growth as well. Number three, probably not the most popular one, but very important, is that you need to get ready to spend some money. You need to make sure that you budget time and money. Budget is very important in your farming area. You need to make sure that you are prepared to put in the time and the effort and the funds to continue being consistent with your marketing over a long period of time. So it's not just about ordering some flyers, dropping them, and waiting. You need to consistently be visible and present. And not all of that is going to take money, but time is money, guys. So if you are going to be spending some time getting face to face with people in your neighborhood, that's going to require time, and you need to budget for that as well. So make sure that you are prepared for that up front. Now, you also need to have a system. So for many of you, I know the word system just kind of makes you break out in a sweat, and organizing and filing and generally using systems are sometimes the hardest things for salespeople, but it doesn't have to be that way. Systems have really come a long way in recent years. And there are tools that are actually fun to use. So it's not just about filing. Tools really help you manage all those relationships that you're forming when you're out there working your farm. As you talk to these people and you create relationships, you need to have a way to follow up with them and remember who they are and all of that great information that you are harvesting about them, in terms of their needs, their wants, their time frames, their hesitations, their objections, all of those things. Also, your local businesses and partners. So make sure that you're using some sort of a CRM, whether that is a notebook or that is a great digital customer relationship management tool online. Whatever your system is that works for you, make sure that you are using that to its potential. Oh, goodness. I went backwards. All right. So number 5, building some partnerships. That's really important. I mentioned that before. So one of the basics of this is reaching out to local business owners and service providers and community events and making sure that you're incorporating all of those into your touch points. You don't have to go into this alone, guys. You can go into this with partners, especially service providers, especially people like home inspectors and builders and handymen and landscapers and people who are also reaching out to the same types of folks that you are. So making sure that you really factor that into your strategy, that is one of the biggest basics to remember. Time blocking is also really critical. And this is something that as humans, most of us kind of don't do well at. Consistency is really important in order to get results from your farm area. So making sure that you block out time for prospecting activities is really important. You need to set appointments with yourself for prospecting activities, whether that's regular touch points, mail outs, face-to-face, door knocking, phone calls, follow-ups, community events, whatever it is. Put those in your calendar as appointments and really hold yourself to them. The most successful real estate farmers that I have seen have set appointments on a regular basis where they hit their target. And if they don't stop until they hit their target in terms of speaking to people, door knocking, or whatever. So time blocking is really critical, and it's very important that you do set time aside for those types of activities. Also, listening is important. So it's not just about you talking about your value. It's not just about you getting the opportunity to tell people about the experience you bring to the table. It's equally about listening. It's really about hearing what the neighbors are saying about your farming area. That's super important. It goes a long way towards becoming the neighborhood expert if you can listen to what they're saying. And it really gives you a competitive advantage when someone's thinking of buying or selling. As you know, door knocking has always been a really great way to hear directly from the residents of a community, and nothing's ever really going to replace that face-to-face communication because it gives you that opportunity to really listen. People always say to me when I'm teaching this class, okay, well, you own a house, Val. Somebody knocked on your door. If a real estate agent knocked on your door, what would you want to hear them say? What could they offer you of value? And I always say, you know what, I would love for them to be able to tell me what other people are saying about the community that I live in. What do other people think are important things to note about the real estate that we own or about the developments that are happening around us? I want to know what my neighbors are saying. I want somebody who can be a spokesperson for the overall neighborhood. And you can really be that if you take the opportunity to listen to what other people are saying. Now, on the topic of door knocking, I absolutely loved this quote, and I wish that I could remember who it was from. A local politician here in the Toronto area where I live tweeted this at one point a couple of years ago, basically saying that he was making the goal to go door to door and knock on every single one of his constituents' door before Election Day. And then he said this: when you have built relationships with people in your community, door knocking is like visiting with friends. And I loved that idea of it's not cold calling, it's not door knocking, it's visiting with friends. These are the people that you want to build relationships with, and you want these people to help strengthen your reputation in your farming area. So, if your goal is to be a familiar, approachable resource, you really cannot go wrong with door knocking. And I think that that's a really great way to look at incorporating door knocking in a way that makes us feel like, okay, we can take a deep breath and smile and feel like, hey, I'm just, a local service provider here in your community that's out to make sure that we're offering the very best that we can and help you really understand what everybody else is saying in your community. And is there something I can help you with? That's amazing. And that's totally something that you would say to somebody that you met that you were friends with. Basic number 8 is having a clear message. Really, your reputation is your brand, guys. I cannot stress that enough. And your value proposition really should be the focus. I find that a lot of us focus on farming areas as I'm number one, I'm number one, I'm number one. And I tell you what, it can be really off-putting for your customers. As much as we hate to hear that in the real estate industry, it makes us feel all prickly about, that's what we've always heard and what we've always known is the goal is to be number one and talk about how we're number one. But really, your value proposition should be the focus. Your focus should be, I'm here to help you. I'm here to walk you through this experience with a good feeling. I'm here to make sure that you have what you need and answer your questions and solve your problems. And that really should be the reputation that you are building as someone who is there to help. and that should be your brand in your area. So focus less on that number one branding and focus a little more on the value and the experience that you provide. And I think you'll find that your message will really resonate a lot more clearly. Number 9, it's not just about real estate, especially when you are out door knocking, but also in your marketing on a regular basis. As you start connecting with these people on social media and your customers start reaching out to you and looking at your online presence and your marketing, remember your marketing is more about holistically nowadays about what people see when they Google you. So they should know that you're a real person too. You should be visible and real and let them get to know you. Our marketing sometimes is really focused on these are the last 12 houses that I sold, call me. But a lot of times we should be focused on what are some of the things that would really draw somebody to work with you that shows that you're a real person. You know that community. You'd be fun to work with. You'd really be somebody that they would connect with. I think that's really important. Don't lose sight of that in your marketing and in your business. Be a real person too. Number 10, really important, give something of value. I share this photo a lot. This is a picture of every single flyer that was shoved in my doorknob at my home over the course of a week. I live in a fairly new neighborhood, so yes, we get flyered probably more than most. But this is probably one of the most important things about farming is you do have to be visible, but you also have to provide value consistently. A lot of agents just do this by peppering their farming community with flyers. Now, direct mail can absolutely work if it's done well, but the vast majority of these kinds of mailings end up in the recycling bin, to be honest. So how can you really stay in front of your community on a regular basis and still provide them with some real value? Here's the thing, guys. Provide information. Provide education. The highest calling of a real estate professional is to educate their customers and help them make better choices. I cannot tell you enough that this is your real value, guys. Your real value is not the data. Your real value is not having access to the back end of the MLS. Your real value is to be able to educate your customers, tell them something they didn't know, answer their questions, and help them to better understand the process and help them to make better choices. If you focus on this being the goal of every single piece of your marketing and every time you talk to people and every single touch point, guys, I cannot tell you enough how this is going to impact the way your relationships grow with your customers, because it really is true that nobody cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. And if the whole point of your business is to educate people and help them make better choices, people are honestly going to believe and see that you care. So that is a really, really important basic. Number 11, also share the stories. People really care about what other people think. So tell the stories of your community and its members. Tell their stories and tell your story. Why do you live in that community or farm that community? Why do you love it so much? And why do the people who live there love it? If the only question you asked when you door knocked forever and ever, amen, from this point was, why do you like living here? And you told those stories to other people who either were interested in moving into that neighborhood or who already lived there, I can tell you right now that you being able to share those stories would do so much more for the image of you being the mayor of that community than anything else. So if you're stuck for something to call or door knock about, just say, you know what? I'm a real estate agent in this neighborhood. I work in this neighborhood a lot. I serve a lot of great folks in this neighborhood. And one thing that I would love to be able to tell them when they're thinking of moving here, some of the stories of the people who live there and what they love about this community. Would you mind telling me today, what do you love most about living here? I tell you what, you are going to be that door knocking agent that they remember because you took the time to actually listen to them and ask them a question about something that means something to them. The last basic I want to share with you today is tracking your results. It goes without saying that all of these efforts are going to lead you to hopefully more success, but it's also important that you track what works, what doesn't, and you are consistently repetitive on the things that work and improving those, and you are flexible enough to drop off what doesn't work. So, in your farming activities, you may find that this particular marketing piece or this effort or this community event, it just really didn't have a profitable result or a long-term result. And so maybe that gets changed, but make sure that you're tracking and that you understand your specific goals so you have an understanding of what it is that needs to change. So let's review. Gave you a lot of information. As you know, this is being recorded, so we are going to load it onto facebook.com/campremax if you want to go back and look at any of these points or have a reminder. But 4 big takeaways for you today is, first of all, choose your target area. Ask those hard questions about why that area might be the right one for you, and choose that specific area based on the answers. And then create a plan, understanding that you need a budget, you need to have a system, and you need to be consistent. And then really deliver some value, guys. Start thinking about what would mean something to those people, not just what means something to you. Be persistent and consistent with that information. And remember, you don't have to implement everything I showed you today. Just pick something to get started. I think that if you find that if you try and do everything, you'll probably do nothing. So pick something and really focus on it. All right, camper of the week to finish off. I got some really fun suggestions for ways to relax and unwind from stressful real estate transactions. I particularly loved eating the lobster idea, sitting in the pool, golfing, got a lot of those. Some really great posts from all of you guys last week. This week, but our camper of the week, though, I have to say this one was pretty much hands down unanimous here in the office. And so our camper of the week for last week was Stuart Blakely. He's with Remax First Olympic Realtors in Lynchburg, Virginia. And Stuart wrote in to tell us that his favorite way to unwind after a crazy day in real estate is working at the firehouse in his community. And firefighting runs in his family's blood. Proud Remax Realtor in Virginia, and also love that he gets to share his passion of firefighting and of protecting his community. So loved that, Stuart. Congratulations. You are officially our camper of the week. And we appreciate what you do for your community, both as a real estate agent and as a firefighter. Would you like to be our camper of the week next week? All you've got to do is share a photo of your favorite summer food. I've got a picture of mine right there for you. It is, in fact, a bacon-wrapped hot dog. It doesn't get much better than that. But bring it. Tell me what your favorite summer food is. Tag us on Instagram with hashtag Camp Remax, or on Twitter. Send it to us on Facebook using the hashtag Camp Remax. Also on Instagram, you can tag at Camp Remax. Send it to us however you can get it to us, and you may just be our camper of the week for next week. So, encourage you to come back next week. Next week, the topic is Ferris wheel, and we are going to be talking about lead conversion marketing. But here's what this topic is really about for next week. We are going to be talking about ways to market to your leads in a way that is effective and not annoying. So you are constantly in this cycle of marketing, just like a Ferris wheel goes around and around. How can you make that process of marketing to those leads effective so that you convert them into business without being annoying? And that is going to be our topic for next week. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you so much for attending. For those of you who are here in Canada, enjoy your long summer weekend. And for the rest of you, stay cool. And I can't wait to see your Camp Remax submissions. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you right here at camp next week.